All right, let's see what we can do on lesson 115, Algebra 1. So here is the one you're stuck on. So let me pull this over. We're solving for x. Put that in my notepad here. My dog is making a bunch of racket, and my son just walked in.
Did you want to plant this basil yourself?
Sorry about that. He had to ask me a quick question. So let's look at how to solve this problem. So we've got -2 times the square root of x plus 4 is equal to -1. So the first thing we want to do is get this x term by itself. So we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. So that gives us -2 times the square root of x alone, because that cancels, is -5. Well, this is -2 times the square root of 5 is equal, or the square root of x is equal to -5. So I'm going to divide both sides by -2. So this would cancel. So I have the square root of x is equal to a negative over a negative is a positive, 5 over 2. So now I'm going to unsquare both sides, or I'm going to square both sides, sorry, not unsquare both sides. I'm going to square both sides to find out what the value of x is. So x is equal to 5 times 5 is 25, and 2 times 2 is 4. And that's all we do to solve those types of problems. All right, and if you want to check your work, you can always put it back into the problem and see if it solves. So why don't we do that just for funsies, right? So -2 times the square root of 25 over 4 plus 4 is equal to -1. So if I find this, it's going to be -2 times the square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 4 is 2. Plus 4 equals -1, right? -2 times 5 is going to be -10 divided by 2 plus 4 equals -1. -10 divided by 2 is a -5 plus 4. And we know that equals -1, so we can see how this is the right answer. So if you want to just double check your work or it doesn't look like it's the right answer, put it back in and see what you get. So doing it that way, we proved it to ourselves that we had the right thing. So let's move on to the next problem. So this one is asking us to find m, or the value of m in relationship to these other variables. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a common denominator of these three terms, and that's going to be md or dm, however you want to write it. Let's do it in alphabetical order just for the sake of, everybody doing it the same way. So I don't have a d here, so I'm going to multiply by d over d, and that's going to give me dx over dm. And I don't have an m here, so I'm going to multiply by m over m, and that gives me minus cm over dm. And here my denominator is 1, so I need to multiply by both dm and dm. So this is going to give me d squared m over dm. Now I know that when I have an equation and all of the terms have the same denominator, I can multiply by that denominator to cancel. So then I would just have dx minus cm is equal to d squared m. Now what I need to do is get all the terms that have the letter m, so I'm going to add cm to both sides. These cancel. Dx is equal to d squared m plus cm. When I factor m out, I'm going to get m times d squared plus c. So when I divide by my other factor here, I'm going to get dx over d squared plus c is equal to m. So my value that I would type in is this fraction. Let's look at the next problem. All right, here's my final problem. So the first thing I want to do is simplify the numerator separate from the denominator, and then I'll simplify the denominator, right? We want to keep them separate first. That makes it a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is look for, using my order of operations, what needs to happen first in the numerator by itself. And that's going to be multiplying by this exponent on the outside of this parenthesis. So that's going to give me 4x squared y to the negative 2. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. And then I have y squared, x, and y. All right, so that's my simplified numerator. Now I'm going to simplify my denominator. So I know that anything to the 0 power can just go away if it's a factor. It just actually turns to the factor of 1. So that's invisible. It just is 1, and 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? So 2 squared, this 2 is going to be multiplied, this exponent is going to be applied to this coefficient. So I'm going to have 2 squared, and then I have x squared y to the negative 2, and this x and y inside the parenthesis doesn't have anything changing it, so it's just xy. So now I can combine my like bases. So in the numerator, I have 4, I have x squared, I have x to the negative 4, and I have x to the positive 1. So 2 minus 4 is negative 2, plus 1 is a negative 1. So I have x to the negative 1. Right? I have y to the negative 2, y to the positive 2. Positive 2 minus 2, those two cancel each other out, and I have 1y remaining. All right, so now on the bottom in the denominator, I have 2 squared. That's 4. I have x squared, and I have x to the 1. 2 plus 1, that's going to be x cubed. And I have a y to the negative 2, y to the positive 1. That's going to be y to the negative 1. So now what I need to do is, first of all, divide my coefficients. 4 divided by 4, that's going to be 1. So we can actually just cancel those. They factor out and go away because they're the value of 1. Now I just need to shuffle my bases from one side to the other. And remember, we always take the smaller to the larger. So this negative 1 comes to the larger one, and it becomes a positive 1 when we move it to the denominator. Same thing for the y. When we shift it to the top, it becomes a positive 1. When we move the negative to the other side, it becomes positive 1. So all I have left in the numerator is y squared, and all I have left in the denominator is x to the 4th power. That is the answer. That's what we're looking for our solution. Let me double check and make sure that's all it's asking. Yes, it just says to simplify it. So that is its simplified form. Let's go ahead and check it by typing it in. So that would be y squared over x to the 4th power. And that's correct. And that's all of the problems that you had with less than 115. Message me if you have any more.